Imagine for a moment a woman who walks alone not out of necessity, but as a natural consequence of her journey through life. She has no friends, not in the conventional sense, no circle to confide in, no network to validate her existence. To some, this might appear tragic, even pitiable. But let us pause and ask, what is it we mean by friendship? And why do we believe it necessary for her happiness? You see, we often think of friends as mirrors, reflections of who we are, affirmations of our worth. But what if this woman has stepped beyond the need for reflections? What if, instead of mirrors, she has found windows vast and open, looking out onto the infinite? Perhaps her solitude is not loneliness, but liberation. She is not without connection, but without confinement. Could it be that in the absence of friends, she has befriended something far greater, her own self? Or perhaps the world as it is? For when one ceases to seek companionship in others, one may discover an extraordinary companionship with life itself. We often speak of loneliness with a kind of whisper, as if the mere mention of it might summon a haunting specter. It is, after all, one of the most feared experiences of the human condition to feel isolated, unseen, and untethered in a world teeming with people. But I want to talk to you today about a woman, a remarkable woman, who has no friends. Not a single one. Now, before you leap to conclusions or pity her as society might urge you to do, let us take a breath and examine this reality. Because you see, her lack of friends is not a tragedy, nor is it an accident of circumstance. It is, in a way, her liberation. And I want to ask you to consider that perhaps this woman, walking through the world alone, has found a treasure that the rest of us, burdened by our relationships and expectations, have yet to uncover. You might imagine her sitting in a quiet cafe, sipping tea alone, her eyes wandering across the room. You might think of her strolling through a park, her steps slow and deliberate, as if she has nowhere to go and nothing to prove. As people watch her, they wonder about her. They pity her, sometimes, or worse, they judge her. Why doesn't she have anyone, they ask. What's wrong with her? But what if I told you that nothing is wrong with her? What if her solitude is not a symptom of inadequacy, but a sign of strength? Because this woman, this solitary figure, has dared to do something that most of us are too frightened to even contemplate. She has let go. She has let go of the need to be liked, the need to belong, the need to prove her worth through the eyes of others. And while the rest of us scramble to collect friends like trinkets, she has discovered something deeper, a relationship with herself, with the present moment, and with the vast unfolding mystery of existence. But I can hear your protests. Alan, you might say, surely friendships are a vital part of life. Don't we all need connection, love, and companionship? Of course, connection is vital. Love is vital. But what we often fail to recognize is that these things do not always come from the places we expect. We have been taught to seek connection in others, to find love in relationships, to measure our worth by how many people will answer our call. But the woman with no friends, she has discovered that connection is not something you seek, it is something you realize. Let me explain. When you sit quietly alone without the distraction of others, you begin to notice things. You notice the sound of the wind rustling through the trees, the rhythm of your own breath, the way light dances across a room. And in these moments, something extraordinary happens. The boundary between you and the world begins to dissolve. You realize that you are not separate from life, not apart from the universe, but an intimate, inseparable part of it. This woman, sitting alone in her cafe, or strolling through her park, she knows this. She feels it in her bones. And because she does, she is never truly lonely. She is alone, yes, but not lonely. For loneliness is not the absence of people, it is the absence of connection. And she is connected to herself, to the world, to the infinite. Now, this is not to say that she has always been this way. No, there was a time when she too longed for friends, for companionship, for the kind of belonging that seems to make life bearable. There were nights when she lay awake, feeling the ache of isolation, wondering what was wrong with her, why she couldn't seem to fit in, why others seemed to form bonds so easily while she remained on the outside looking in. But then something changed. Perhaps it was a moment of insight, or perhaps it was simply the gradual unfolding of her life. She began to see that the friendships she had sought were often built on shaky foundations, on need, on insecurity, on a desperate desire to be understood. And she realized that these relationships, while comforting in the moment, were ultimately unsatisfying. They were like a house of cards, beautiful but fragile, easily toppled by a harsh word or a moment of inattention. And so she stopped seeking. She stopped clinging. She let go of her expectations, her need for approval, her fear of being alone. And in doing so, she found a freedom that most of us can only dream of. But make no mistake, this freedom comes at a cost. The world does not look kindly on those who walk alone. We are a social species after all, and we have little patience for those who reject our norms. This woman, with her quiet independence, her refusal to conform, she is often misunderstood, even ostracized. People assume she is cold, unkind, or simply incapable of forming connections. But they are wrong. She feels deeply, this woman. She loves deeply. But her love is not confined to a handful of people she calls friends. It is broader, more expansive, like a river that flows freely, nourishing everything it touches. She loves the world in all its chaos and beauty. She loves the strangers she passes on the street, the birds that sing outside her window, the stars that glitter in the night sky. And in this love she finds a joy that no friendship, no matter how deep, could ever provide. Now, I am not suggesting that we should all abandon our friends and retreat into solitude. That is not the point. The point is to recognize that friendship, like all things in life, is not an end in itself. It is not something to be clung to or relied upon for our happiness. True happiness, true connection, comes from within. It comes from understanding that we are already whole, already complete, already connected to the vast infinite web of existence. And so the woman with no friends, she is not a figure to be pitied, but a teacher, a reminder of what is possible when we let go of our fears and embrace the mystery of life. She shows us that it is possible to be alone without being lonely, to walk through the world with an open heart, to find connection in the most unexpected places. She reminds us that we are never truly alone. Even in our solitude, we are surrounded by life, by beauty, by the endless dance of existence. And if we can learn to see this, to feel this, then perhaps we too can find the freedom she has found. Perhaps we too can learn to walk alone, not as a burden, but as a joy, as a celebration of the incredible, unrepeatable miracle of being alive.